All right, everybody, it's another episode of Staying Tall. It is January 22nd, and we're going to dive right in. It's Monday, so back to the Art of War. Chapter 6, verse 23. Rouse him and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. I like that one. That's interesting because we're not just talking about the enemy when we read the Art of War, because we're not always in or at war with other people. In fact, I would argue that the people or person that we're at war with the most is ourselves. I'm not quite sure who said it, but there's something like, we're like humans lie, and the person that we lie to is ourselves. Like the person we lie to the most is ourselves. So, given that we are fallible and we lie to ourselves, I would say that there's kind of like this management of self, right? Of like, if you yourself are the enemy, then your emotions and your, I guess what stoicism and what we'll be getting to, trying to impulse control. So this is really kind of like an interesting way to think about it. I don't know how exactly to put it into words, but we talked a lot about being formless, and shapeless and being an enigma. And so like if you're predictable and you have a schedule and you always do the same thing, then you know yourself. You know at least that part of yourself, yeah? So like activity or inactivity, and in fact, I would argue that sometimes you become unknown to yourself through certain habits of things that may not be your principles. So like things like laziness, things like sloth, things like overeating. These are all things. I mean, I'm guilty of. I like sitting on the couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix just as much as anyone else does. Um, but here's the thing: like I was about to go work out today, and as I started my car and started driving off, I realized like I still have to do this. So like this like dedication, right? So like dedication. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out what his vulnerable spots. So if we are looking inwardly at ourselves, how do we force ourselves out of that? We have to get uncomfortable, right? We have to be the crab who exposes himself to danger because we need to go to the bigger shell, right? So we're gonna die if we don't. We're gonna die if we don't force ourselves into that uncomfortable position of change. And so dying is a metaphor, of course, but dying to an average life or a below average life is pretty much what we're talking about here, because you can't be either so formless and an enigma to yourself that you have no control, but at the same time, don't be so noble to yourself so as not to know that you need to be roused in order to change or something similar, right? All right, so let's go over to this alternate translation and just see what we come up with. Master Sun says, so assess them to find out their plans, both the successful ones and the failures. Incite them to action in order to find out the patterns of their movement and rest. Mengshi says, assess opponents' conditions, observe what they do, and you can find out their plans and measures. Shin Ho says, do something for or against them, making opponents turn their attention to it so that you can find out their patterns of aggressive and defensive behavior. And then Dumu wraps it up with, stir opponents up, making them respond to you. Then you can observe their forms of behavior and whether they are orderly or confused. So stir yourself up, right? Do something to force yourself into change. Move out of your parents' house or something like that. Move halfway across the country. I mean, a lot of these stories of success and failure, you can really look at the trend lines and follow and see kind of like what activities led to that. And I mean, honestly, some of them I fought against and even caved into at certain points, for the good and the bad. The military wizard, Wu Qi, devised this strategy for assessing generals. Have brave young men lead crack troops on strikes and run away after skirmishing without being punished for running away. Then observe the he had to like throw that in there because of like how honorable, right? Like not like being told that you won't be punished for running away, like even though that's what you're told to do, right? Anyway, then observe the enemy's behavior. If there is orderly rule and the enemy does not give chase to the fleeing troops and does not try to take advantage to grab what it can, this means the general has a strategy. It's interesting. So it's like going, like, even for like a quick video game, like go into a fight strategically, then retreat, and then find, pull someone away and then pick them off one by one. On the other hand, if the enemy behaves like a mob, giving chase in total confusion and greedily trying to plunder, you can be sure that the directives of the generals are not carried out, so you can attack them without hesitation. That's an interesting way to view it, right? An interesting strategy of drawing out others, and observing their motives and observing their habits. And I think the same thing can be said to you, as you're observing yourself, right? Because here he's pointing out that if you're undisciplined and if you give chase to these emotions that arise within you, they're seeking to do skirmish with you, and you cave in to these emotions, then you lose control, and then you're no longer the general, the emotions are. So using all of that to better yourself. January 22nd, the day in review. This is out of the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. I will keep constant watch over myself, and most usefully will put each day up for review. For this is what makes us evil, that none of us looks back upon our own lives. We reflect upon only that which we are about to do, and yet our plans for the future descend from the past. I swear, so that's Seneca, Moral Letters 83.2. Like, I swear, like, these are not planned. But that is so incredible that Seneca and this fell into line about looking inward to ourselves, about what makes us most evil is that we don't look back on our own lives. We only reflect on what we're about to do and not what we've done. And um, I think that's why a lot of people, as they age and they do start reflecting on their life, I mean, I think that's where a lot of like life lessons come from, is because they're like wanting to share all these mistakes that they made. All right. In a letter to his older brother Novatus, Seneca describes a beneficial exercise he borrowed from another prominent philosopher. At the end of the day, he would ask himself variations of the following questions: what bad habit did I curb today? How am I better? Were my actions just? And how can I improve? At the beginning or end of each day, the Stoic sits down with his journal and reviews what he did, what he taught, what could be improved. And for this reason, that Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is a somewhat inscrutable book. It was for personal clarity and not public benefit. Writing down Stoic exercise was and is almost a form of practicing them, just as repeating a prayer or hymn might be. Keep your own journal, whether it's saved on a computer or in a little notebook or a video journal like this. Take time to consciously recall the events of the previous day. Be unflinching in your assessments. Notice what contributed to your happiness and what detracted from it. Write down what you'd like to work on or quotes that you like. I like that. I'm a quote guy. I'm a big quote guy. We got a lot of quotes out there. By making the effort to record such thoughts, you're less likely to forget them. An added bonus, you'll have a running tally to track your progress to. I like it. It's good to write things down. I think it's your duty to. I think it's your duty to share with the world, your thoughts and your assessments, because that's the only way like a consensus can be reached. And with technology, we're ever and ever approaching a way for that to happen. So yeah, just don't stop, don't quit, don't give up, keep sharing, keep fighting, keep analyzing yourself and bettering yourself, but don't be so formless to yourself and so unknown to yourself that you can't, recognize change or force yourself into change to become better. And so that's what we're here to do while we stand tall.